Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our current session, The Next Big Opportunity, Securing the Backbone of the U.S. Economy. And I would also like to take a moment to thank Cybertrust America and the many other co-organizers for putting together today's event. This has been both an impressive and comprehensive event in providing guidance to everyone that's attended. We hope that you're getting out of it as much work as went into it. My name is Zarmina Wasim. I am the Director of Cybersecurity Education at the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and I'm very happy to be here today. Our organization's goal is to help create a safer, more interconnected world, and we have the pleasure of working with Cybertrust America and some of our other panelists who are with us here today. With that being said, I would like to turn the microphone over to our astute panelists to introduce themselves before we dive into the portion of our session. Lon, why don't we start with you?
Yes, thank you so much, Zarmina. This has been a very uplifting experience to be organizing this event jointly with your organization, Zarmina. And your organization got mentioned many times throughout the other sessions also. Yes, it's truly a team sport. And so my name is Jenson. I am the founder and CEO of Cybertrust America. It's now in its fifth year. Time flies. So it's entirely nonprofit, supported by volunteers, including myself. So all the professionals out there, if anyone wants to, is curious, wants to say, hey, what does it mean? What does it entail to volunteer with you, with a nonprofit? Give me a shout out. It's been fun. And many of our volunteers have been working together for a long time. I think I'm the first one, and then we have Kenny. It's been his 3 coming to 4 years now too. So back to you, Zarmina.
Why don't we have Malcolm also introduce himself?
Yeah, thanks. MK Palmore, happy to be a part of this conversation. Longtime security practitioner and leader, been in the security industry for a number of decades now. Starting my security journey while an agent in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, spent 22 years in the FBI, and then subsequently retired from the Bureau and moved into the private sector. I'm participating in this session today really under the guise of a leadership position I have with a nonprofit organization called Cybersecurity, which is an organization geared towards increasing the numbers of women and traditionally underrepresented minorities in the cybersecurity space. And so the optic that I hope to bring to this conversation really is about widening the perspective of the types of individuals that we encourage to pursue careers in the information security industry, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. And to also give the audience a little bit more background on myself, the main program that I pour my efforts into at NCSA is called Cybersecure My Business. So we'll be spending some time talking not only about the diversity, equity, and inclusion, as Malcolm mentioned, but the small and medium-sized business community today as part of the backbone of the U.S. economy. So what I would like to start off with both of our panelists and myself today is we hear a lot about people, processes, and technology. So out of that triad, what do you think that the small, medium-sized business community should start with as a focus to get their risk lowered? As we become more and more connected, and as all of our organizations become smarter.
I'm happy to take a first stab at this. So small to medium-sized businesses experience issues as it relates to cybersecurity just as much, if not more, than large-scale enterprises. In fact, most adversaries count on the lack of focus and the lack of investment in cybersecurity when directing their attacks and efforts towards small to medium-sized businesses. And so because those types of organizations, largely due to their size, and inability to invest heavily in cybersecurity are still held to the same requirements. And I think part of the thing that they should do, or things that we should encourage more within the industry, is leveraging the skill sets and abilities of much larger organizations. For instance, I think that any, especially small business that isn't leveraging the services or tools or buckets of a MSSP as it relates to protecting their enterprise from cybersecurity challenges, and or leveraging, these small firms that address issues for multiple clients. That way you get a certain scale in terms of the solutions that are delivered to you, and it absolutely levels up the capabilities of these small organizations. And I would put nonprofits in that same bucket as well, because that's another sort of sector that I see both impacted by issues related to cybersecurity, but oftentimes not in a position to devote resources to the particular issue. And so there's larger entities out there that are collectively addressing issues, and they should leverage access to those entities to the degree that they can, to better position their organizations to combat threats on the threat landscape.
And just really quick, for those of our audience members who may not be familiar with cybersecurity, do you mind just letting them know what MSSP stands for?
Yeah, managed. So MSSP, you hear MSSP, managed services security provider. And that is an entity, again, that has security services for which they scale to multiple organizations. So managed services as a category, again, is an area I think that probably we could spend a little bit of time talking about, just because most small businesses or medium-sized businesses just don't have access to the types of security tools that they need to protect even a small enterprise. And then also managed services accounts for the growth of a potential small enterprise as well.
I love that question, Zamina, because I have some perspectives that I took straight from the earlier breakout session with small business owners themselves. And so this is what they shared. I asked a similar question. And they said that, well, the best scenario is that I get some knowledge and awareness about this space, but in all my desire, I'm not going to want to do it myself the entire time. I'd like to rely on professionals' help so that I can focus more on doing what I do the best. And then the professionals can help us get our data well protected, and I have the confidence. So just like what MK just said, so right on, that's what they said.
And I think it's important to note also that because we're in the security realm, we think of most businesses or nonprofits as security-based, but most businesses are actually not security-based. So their business owners are more focused on growing that business, whatever that model is. And maybe, the MSP or MSSP is the smarter way to go for them, so that they can have someone with that subject matter expertise handling it for them. So moving on to another discussion question, some of the pain points that we've listed for small businesses in our brainstorming activities was who can help them. Aside from MSPs or MSSPs, what other types of organizations or resources do you think that they need to be either collaborating with or in touch with or introduce themselves to be successful when it comes to security?
Yes, if I could take a stab at this, especially for small businesses owners, they don't even know where to begin. So I think if we put them as at the center of as a client from that perspective, then organizations need to provide or meet them where they are at. So some MSPs, because they are for-profit businesses, so they may not be able to lower their prices, right, to just to keep their business going. So we've got to understand that. And these small businesses and therefore might be priced out. There are a huge number of them, as we also all saw. COVID-19 basically just cast a very bright torch onto that population. So one resource that I want to share, I don't want for this to be understood as a blowing my own horn, but because just like an earlier leader said, innovation basically is necessity is the mother of innovation. So because we saw that necessity, my nonprofit, Cybertrust America, has built up a program to exactly serve that population that are kind of priced out. And what they are able to get are essentials. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for the essentials that they need to go take their business online. And so that includes digital store, digital marketing, and digital trust, which includes the cybersecurity and privacy. So you may notice that I use those terms not by using our lingo like cybersecurity, because even that word may not mean much to small businesses. So we have run that program for a few months since actually summer last year. And then we got great results. We are now in the middle of working with the City of Coral Gables and the Census Bureau to take it take it up one notch so that it is scalable to serve more businesses rather than our current capacity of 6 or 7. So back to, one last thing before I just give it back to you is that our nonprofit is still a newer nonprofit. So it does not have the capability to provide all of those services. So what we actually did was to do it together with partners. So we have 20-something partners that enable all of this together with us. Back to you.
I really like what you said about cybersecurity may not mean much to someone who's outside of this industry or this business scope, because if you think about it, for most people, security equals money, right? So small, medium-sized businesses, especially if they've been priced out of certain programs or certain assistance or certain vendors, they're gonna look at it as more of a pain point again, right? So I think it's crucial to have organizations like yours and like ours. NCSA and other federal organizations also offer many different programs, such as Cybersecure My Business. CISA has lots of just different resources on their website, as does the FTC and the SBA. So we want to make sure that we're not just, you should toot your own horn, Lon, number one. But aside from that, not only are we plugging ourselves, but that we're making sure that these businesses know that there's a list of resources that you can use that are both for free and available to you as open source as possible. MK, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll plus one on the availability of free resources out there for small businesses. I think they should take advantage of those resources when available to them. But I will offer a little bit of pushback on the cost involved for those that choose to go the paid services route, only because the pushback that I will give you is that your alternative to not spending on cybersecurity is to increase the probability that your organization will be significantly impacted by a major security event. Security events, as we know, we've tracked them over the past, decade or more, are costing organizations. The average cost of a breach for an organization or an enterprise is $3 to $5 million. I don't know any small business that without some kind of preparation in the way of assessments on their environment and or the purchase of cyber insurance or investment has, a free $3 to $5 million available to mitigate the impact of a major security incident to their organization. And so when you weigh the cost of investment, spending a little bit on prevention strategies, on the proper tools for your enterprise so that you can scale your enterprise as you grow, but at the same time keep it secure, becomes one of the most important components of the survivability of your business. And while every business may not be security focused, nearly every business is a digital one. And you can't have a digital business without discussing the importance of cybersecurity in that business.
100% agree with that. And, not just the millions of dollars, but the reputational effects that breaches have. They can take years to recover from, as we've seen for not just major organizations, but smaller ones as well. So let's switch gears for a moment and talk about getting new blood, if you will, into not just small and medium-sized businesses, but also in the security part of those small and medium-sized businesses, or even small and medium-sized enterprises, if you will. So what would your advice be for the question, where can I find my first role, my first experience for those newbies who are looking to break into this industry?
That's like the holy grail.
Mm-hmm.
We in the field, we all know about the huge vacancies, right? On the one hand,
we talk about it every day.
Organizations, cannot get 2 million jobs filled in cybersecurity. On the other hand, there are, I don't know the exact number, but I would say there are tens of thousands of fresher, newer entrants who aspire to become professionals in the field. But in reality, they often face that last mile challenge that is like a catch-22. On the one hand, they need experience to land their first job. On the other hand, without a first job, where do they find that experience? So this is,
And the impossible job descriptions that people have written up these days, asking for 10 years of experience for things that have only been around for 2 years and things like that. So.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, true. One of our partners, Deidre, and her company, has been the biggest cybersecurity staffing company in the United States, has repeatedly said that, she sees that happening all the time. It's like, people, can we make some sense here?
Right.
In the meantime, though, us as professionals or as newer entrants, what can we do? All right, before the culture changes. So this is one thing that some people have found good traction in doing. This same program that I just mentioned earlier, I'll take up your word for it, blow my horn here.
Toot your own horn.
The Accelerator program provides free services to small businesses, right? Implementing security posture, such as penetration test, such as privacy policy, such as implementing a tool so that the websites, or encryption, as simple as that, SSL, and all of this, and even more specialized, like a PCI. Compliance, right? So etc. A slew of them, and hygiene training, of course, that's a number one, and risk assessment, another one. So all of this we packaged together, give it to the small businesses. So they select top 2 goals. Say, hey, for my business, these 2 speak to me the most. Can I get your help? And then a team of professional volunteers and student interns then team up to execute those for the small businesses. And so at the end of it, the new entrants to the field get experiences that they can put on their resume. And besides that, they also could list us as a referral. So we've received many potential hiring companies calling us asking for references. So we gladly do it.
And I would just add to that, to plug NCSA a little bit. If you don't know what any of the terms that the Accelerator program helps with, then you can join one of the Cybersecure My Business webinars that we do on a monthly basis to help you get a foundation for what all of those things mean, so you can decide what priorities you want to select for yourself or your business if and when you choose to join the Accelerator program, as I think everyone should. I think one of the big questions, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to make sure that we address it at least head on, is the question of diversity. I think that this comes up a lot, regardless of what size business or enterprise you're talking about, regardless of what field you're looking at or what specialization you're looking at, whether that's threat intel, incident response, education and awareness, you name it. So what would be your advice for small and medium-sized businesses who are trying to prioritize both of these things, security and diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so let me take a stab at this and also bring in some components of the last question you asked around new entrants into the field. Because there's a couple of things here, and there's a lot to unpack. One, there's a comment in the comment section around there's a shortage of folks for the jobs that are available in tech, while there's a large degree of tech jobs available, which is a bit of a paradox, right? And part of the challenge is in the tech industry, we do a horrible job of identifying what our requirements are for entry-level positions into technology fields. What we typically do is we ask for, at least in theory, a person who has already done the job in order to do the job that we want them to do, while not leaving any room for the possibility that people bring particular skill sets and that you might need to train them up for the position, especially the entry-level position for which you are looking for. And so that extends to nearly every grade, from entry level to mid-level to senior level positions. No one's willing to take a chance on talent. People expect folks to come in, hit the ground running, and that they not only inherently know all of the things that they may need to know to do that job, but you're all looking for superstars out there. And this will cripple us and continue to prohibit tech and others from scaling to the job shortage challenge. And so my pushback to that, as someone who's been involved in the DEI space, is to look to many of these nonprofits out here and other organizations like Cyversity, like the Women in Cybersecurity, all of these organizations that are used as platforms and networks for folks that look like us, quite frankly, because most security teams don't look like this panel, in order to tap into new and available talent in the security field. We suffer from a success problem in the tech industry, and in that, folks who are typically, for quite frankly, white males, have kind of dominated this industry. And what you end up looking for, and what you end up acquiring oftentimes, are folks who look exactly like the hiring manager or the people who's looking to fill positions in these organizations. And that limits the ability of that business to grow, expand, and really bring new solutions to the table. So from that standpoint, I think there's enough information out there about diversity being sort of a business imperative, right? There's a business driver to why organizations should diversify themselves. And in the security industry, we just do a horrible job at it, which is why in my free time outside of my main job at a large tech provider, I spend a ton of time in the DEI space, because we have to encourage people with the skills that they have or are willing to develop to take a full jump into technology and cybersecurity. This is the future of business. It is quickly becoming the number 1 or 2 risk to business enterprise moving forward. It's already, I think, at number 2. Number 1, I think, is calamity, like an unexplained or an uncontrolled event like earthquake, weather, the kind of thing that you have absolutely no control over. But technology risk is number 2 globally, and it all revolves around cybersecurity. So there's plenty of room at the table, and organizations like Cyversity and a couple of ones mentioned here are all about bringing new people to the table, giving them opportunities to train, opportunities to develop their skill set, and most importantly, networking with like-minded individuals who have, in some cases, ascended the ladder and have valuable advice to give to individuals about how to break into the security industry. This is part of the imperative. Like you talk about cybersecurity, you talk about the personnel shortage. The bridge to close some of this gap is around this issue of diversity and inclusion. And unless we snap out of it and really get focused on making that an intentional component of bringing new folks into our industry, we will never close that personnel gap.
I think that's a very comprehensive way of putting it. I couldn't have said it better myself. Lon, do you have anything you want to add?
I agree with what MK just said, that to change the culture in the long run, that has to happen. And we as professionals who are here, I consider people in this conference as the leaders that we are going to look forward to bringing about the cultural shifts. And this jointly together with so it's kind of a near short-term approach needs to happen, and then longer-term strategic shifts need to happen. And together, hopefully, we can shorten this, close this gap or minimize this gap in a shorter time span, rather than letting it run on for decades and decades.
So what would you both offer as words of wisdom to small and medium-sized businesses who are concerned that as we talk about the growing threat of ransomware and other breaches that are looming or going to become more popular over the next months to years, who look at the current climate and landscape and think, you're asking me to pivot to become a security-focused business. And they sort of want to push that off and say that I want to stay committed to my business and not become a security business. What would your rebuttal be to that? Does that question make sense? It made sense in my head.
It does make sense, makes a lot of sense. And that would, in my mind, ask the small businesses to also take a more diligent or open mind thinking style, like MK just advocated for. So they also need to lift their vision up a little bit, rather than just keeping looking at, today, what's today's job, what's tomorrow's, right? So if they adopt a little bit longer term vision, then they can get going on to baking security and privacy in. We mentioned about the cost, which is true, but there are resources now available, not just my own, this program that we are trying to scale up, but there are lots of other great resources that people can leverage and get going in the near term. But also to MK's point about, thinking of your businesses strategically, you also, another thing I advocate for our small businesses do is this. Right now, governments, whether it's federal level governments or state or local, like city and county level governments, they have it on the top of their minds to help the small businesses get better equipped to survive and thrive in the digital economy. But those helpers don't know where to begin. So earlier, the Vice Mayor of San Jose said exactly that. He said, hey, help us help you. Please let us know how we can best help you. So that's another thing that is built into the Accelerator or the safety net platform. So the platform is going to also become a tool for governments like City of Coral Gables or City of San Jose to then utilize that checklist on the platform to say, hey, now I just send this checklist out to my small businesses, and then small businesses can use about 15 minutes or so to tell the governments, hey, you said, you want to hear from me. Now I'm here, I'm participating, I'm telling you through this checklist, please then, when can I accept the help to come along, right? So that is already in the works, hopefully coming out to some of the cities soon.
And I think I would add to that actually something that MK said earlier, that every business in this day and age is a digital business. So we're not necessarily asking anyone to pivot to become a security business, if you will. We're just asking people to kind of open their peripheral vision, if you will. I think one of the things that I think anyone can agree with, whether you work in tech, near tech, or not in tech, is that the amount of evolution that technology and security has gone through over the past few years has been so fast that we haven't actually been able to inform, educate, and train on it as fast as it's been happening, as far and wide as we would like to. So that's why we need to continue to deliver the message that security is not just a team sport, but it is everyone's responsibility, right? So every business is responsible for their own security as well. Did you want to add anything, MK?
No, I appreciate you bringing up that point I tried to make earlier, which was, the fact that reliance on digital systems and digital technology really, in practical terms, has shown us how it is that businesses maintain their survivability. A perfect example has been the last 20 months, right? The entire globe has been responding to a global pandemic. And one of the first things that businesses realized was that they had to engage in something that they had not planned for ever. There was no, especially for walk-in businesses or businesses that require a lot of physical one-on-one interaction. There was no aspect of that pandemic that they had planned for. And so what you saw was that businesses that were capable of pivoting quickly to digital platforms and a reliance on digital technology in order to maintain their engagement with customers are the ones that survived essentially without missing a beat, and in some cases actually saw an increase in reliance on their systems and revenue. And that's an important point to take away from this in terms of business survivability. And another reason, and I'm going to keep banging the drum on the DEI front, in terms of businesses that have thrived over the past 20 months, any business that's had double-digit growth over the past 20 months, I tell you, I could probably dig in and show you some digital component of that business that was responsible for it, which is why I'm constantly encouraging women and underrepresented minorities to just take a look at technology and cybersecurity as a potential landing point for themselves, especially at the college level where their minds are open and they have this ability to sort of pick and choose where it is that they want to spend, at least the initial points of their career. Take a look at cybersecurity, take a look at technology, because it's going to be around for decades to come, and the reliance on it will increase. So the importance of your positions increase, the ability to make a decent livelihood off of those positions increases. It's uptick all the way.
Fantastic points. Thank you. So I also wanted to ask a question sort of related to that. So for the businesses that are concerned about the growing threats, and maybe they're not as well-versed in security, or maybe they are very well-versed in security, but there's a general concern that you find in the SMB community right now, which is, are the bad guys winning, right? And so what advice or what peace of mind could you offer to small and medium-sized businesses who are sitting with this and maybe don't have the expertise that you and I and Lon have?
I don't want to explore, the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and discontent and all that kind of stuff, right? But I don't want to put businesses, I don't want to put their mind at ease. This is again, the critical risk element to their business moving forward, they need to be affirmatively engaging in this and or relying on resources, as we stated earlier, to help them engage on this. If you have your head in the sand as a business owner or a business leader and are not addressing your cybersecurity issues, you're setting yourself up for potential failure through a significant security incident from which you may not be able to recover. So again, we go to the left-hand side of the equation. Take some time, invest the time, effort, responsibility, and resources into developing a security apparatus for your business, and you then subsequently promote the longevity or the potential longevity of your business through your investment of time and effort. There's no easy button for this,
Right.
and you can't let businesses off the hook and say, oh, because you're 10 people or less, you're only operating some small shop of professional services, you're off the hook. No one's off the hook, because the adversaries who I spent a career looking at and tracking, these folks are not going to stop. They're engaged in a very successful business model for which they make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of, in some cases millions in the most extreme cases. Why are they going to stop doing what they're doing? It works for them.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Just making sure that businesses are looking at it with a realistic lens. And what I like to tell people as part of my job, as you can imagine, is to train businesses all over the country. And one of the things that I always say is that if we can get people to do the security basics or understand the fundamentals, we have brought down your risk levels quite a bit if we can get people to focus on that. So, yeah, Lon, anything you want to add to that?
Cannot agree more. Well said. The only thing to add maybe a call for business owners to understand their crown jewels, so that at least at any point of time when someone says, oh, a staff member clicked on a questionable email, now you go into a panic state. But if you know that your crown jewels, where they are, the risky bets about your crown jewels, then you don't have to go into a panic mode. You will be able to take quick actions. So that will be just my quick, must do step. Let's say, put it this way: must do. Any business owner, if you run a business, you need to get funding. So now add another thing: if you run a business, you need to at least know where your crown jewel data is at.
Yeah. So we have just a few minutes left. I wanted to make sure that we take a moment and answer the question of what would your biggest piece of advice for the next, foreseeable future, whether that's short-term or long-term, you decide how you want to answer the question. But I would like to hear from each of you, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you would like to give the SMB community from where you're standing or sitting?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. I would say use your voice. Let's say, use your voice. If you know you wanted to protect your business, but you don't have the resources, use your voice and tell the leaders about it. So only by us combining efforts and voices together, then there will be more resources to help ourselves.
Cybersecurity is a team sport. Ask for help. I have met very few security teams or security individuals who have all the answers. In fact, I've met no one that has all the answers. This is an area where it actually informs you to hear the opinions of others. You don't absolutely always have to take them, but you should be open to hearing the opinions of others within security and, frankly, outside of the security industry, because sometimes they actually take a different approach to problem solving that may have answers that we haven't even thought of. But just listen to folks, make good judgments, make good investments so that you can prevent being on the wrong side of that equation, because I have seen many organizations on the wrong side of the security equation, and it is it's terrible to see an organization go through a significant breach. It just a little disheartening, right? And it's all, they do spend time, whether they want to admit it or not. And, if I had done this, if I had invested in that and this, that, and the other, and just don't be in that position.
To add to all of the wonderful points you've made, I would just say, for the SMB community to get plugged in and stay plugged in. And that means all of the possible newsletters, or if there's organizations that you can follow on Twitter that are giving out great resources and information for SMBs, free or otherwise, trial or otherwise, get plugged into those and make sure that you're joining any working groups that you, or community groups that you can, and stay plugged into those. You'll end up finding most of the resources that you need to continue to bring your risk factors down. Thank you both so much for being here with me today. And thank you, Lon, for having me. And thank you so much to our audience that has been super engaged in the chat.